Everything your English teacher ever taught you might actually be making you slower. The fastest English learners in the world are breaking every rule in the textbook, and today we're going to show you exactly how.
Okay, I need to tell you something that genuinely blew my mind last week. I was reading a study about immigrant families in the United States. Researchers tracked two groups, young children who had just moved to the U.S. and their parents who had also just moved to the U.S. Same families, same households, same starting point.
Okay, I'm already interested. What did they find?
The children, kids who were around 7 or 8 years old, were speaking fluent English within 2 years, sounding completely natural, no accent, using slang, joking with their classmates. 2 years.
That's fast.
And the parents? The parents were studying English textbooks every single night, doing homework, practicing grammar rules, and after 10 years, many of them were still struggling to hold a basic conversation.
10 years versus 2 years. Same house, same environment, completely different results.
And the question that should be keeping every English learner awake at night is this: what were those kids doing that their parents weren't?
Because the kids weren't studying harder. They weren't doing grammar drills at 7 years old.
They were just living, playing, watching cartoons, making friends.
And somehow that worked better than years of serious studying.
That is exactly what we are getting into today. I'm Alex.
And I'm Emma. Welcome to Fluent English Podcast, where two Americans just have real conversations on everyday topics, and you improve your English just by listening along.
No textbooks, no grammar lectures, just two people talking, the way real English speakers actually talk.
And today's topic is one I personally find very exciting because I am trying to learn Spanish right now, and everything we are going to talk about today applies directly to me too.
Same for me with French. Honestly, learning about how language acquisition actually works has completely changed how I approach French, and I wish someone had told me this years ago.
All right, let's get into it. Alex, you mentioned the study about immigrant families, but this pattern shows up everywhere, right? It's not just one study.
It shows up constantly. Linguists have been observing this for decades, and the most famous researcher to really dig into it and try to explain it is a man named Stephen Krashen. He's a linguist, a language scientist, from the University of Southern California. And in the 1970s and 1980s, he started developing what he called the input hypothesis.
The input hypothesis. Okay, explain that.
So his core idea is this: you do not learn a language by studying it. You acquire it by receiving and understanding messages in that language.
Okay, there's a word right there I want to highlight for our listeners: acquire. To acquire something means to get it or develop it naturally over time. You acquire skills through experience. You acquire habits. You can acquire a taste for something. It's a very natural, organic process.
And Krashen made a very sharp distinction between acquiring a language and learning a language. Acquiring is what those children were doing without thinking about it. Learning is what the parents were doing at the kitchen table with their grammar books.
And his argument was that only acquisition leads to real fluency?
Exactly. He said that studying grammar gives you knowledge about a language, but acquisition gives you the ability to actually use it, and those are two completely different things.
I feel that so deeply with Spanish. I can explain certain grammar rules, I've memorized them, but when I'm trying to speak, my brain is not running through grammar rules, or at least it should not be.
Right. Native speakers don't consciously think about grammar. When I say the red car, I'm not thinking adjective before noun, subject, then verb. It just comes out automatically. That's the difference between knowing the rules and having internalized the language.
And that automatic quality, that's what we want. That's the goal.
That's exactly the goal. And here's the key ingredient that makes acquisition happen. Krashen identified it very precisely. He called it comprehensible input.
Comprehensible, another good word. If something is comprehensible, it's understandable. You can make sense of it. The noun is comprehension, as in reading comprehension. And the opposite, incomprehensible, means you cannot understand it at all.
So, comprehensible input means language that you can mostly understand. And here's the critical detail. Not completely understand, just mostly, just about 90% or so, with a little bit of new material mixed in. Krashen called this I+1, where I is your current level, and +1 is just a little bit beyond.
So the ideal input is just slightly above where you are right now.
Slightly, not a lot, just slightly. And this is exactly the situation those immigrant children were in. Their teachers spoke clearly. Their friends used everyday vocabulary. Their cartoons used simple sentences. All of that was comprehensible input, hour after hour, day after day.
But the parents were in the wrong zone. Their textbooks were too mechanical, too low level, and the TV news was too fast, too complex, too much vocabulary they didn't know. So they were either bored or overwhelmed.
Neither of which triggers acquisition. Krashen said acquisition only happens in a very specific sweet spot, not too easy, not too hard.
It's like that story, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You know that story?
Of course, the porridge has to be just right.
Exactly. The input has to be just right. Too easy, and your brain is not engaged. Too hard, and your brain shuts down. But just right, and your brain lights up and starts absorbing everything.
And I love that you use the word absorb there. To absorb something means to take it in naturally, the way a sponge takes in water. You don't push the water into the sponge. You just place the sponge in the water, and it absorbs.
That's such a good image. You don't push the language in. You place yourself in the language and let it absorb in.
So let's talk about what's actually happening inside the brain when you receive comprehensible input, because I think understanding the mechanism helps people really believe in it.
Yes, because if you understand why something works, you're much more likely to actually do it. You trust the process.
Okay, so when you are listening to English and you are understanding it, even if not perfectly, your brain is doing something remarkable. It's pattern matching. It is taking the sounds it hears, connecting them to the meaning in context, and slowly building a kind of internal grammar.
And this is happening without you consciously trying to do it.
Completely without you trying. Unconscious is the word here. When something is unconscious, it happens below the level of your awareness. You are not thinking about it. It just runs in the background.
Like how you drive a car. If you've been driving for years, you don't consciously think about each movement. You just drive. Your brain has automated it.
Perfect example. And that's exactly what happens with language. In the beginning, everything is conscious and effortful. You hear a word, you think about what it means, you construct a sentence piece by piece. It's slow, it's hard. But as you get more and more exposure, those patterns get stored unconsciously. And eventually, the right words and structures just come out automatically without effort.
Exposure. That's another key word for our listeners. Exposure means being in regular contact with something. Language exposure means consistently hearing and seeing the language in real use.
And here's the part that feels almost unfair once you understand it. Your brain is doing this pattern learning all the time, whether you consciously tell it to or not. You cannot switch it off. If you spend enough hours listening to English in a context where you understand the meaning, your brain will start building that internal grammar by itself.
You don't have to force it, you just have to provide the right conditions.
Exactly. And here's something else Krashen identified that I think is really important. He called it the affective filter. Affective relates to emotions and feelings, and the affective filter is basically a mental barrier that goes up when you're anxious, stressed, or under pressure.
And when that barrier goes up, acquisition slows down or stops?
That's exactly what he argued. When you are nervous, when you are worried about making mistakes, when you feel like you're being tested or judged, your brain goes into a kind of protective mode and language stops flowing in as freely.
Oh, that explains so much. I've noticed this with Spanish. When I'm in a relaxed situation, watching a show I enjoy or just listening to music, I pick things up so naturally. But when I'm in a class and the teacher's looking at me and waiting for me to answer, my brain just goes completely blank.
Pick up. Great phrasal verb. To pick something up means to learn it informally without formal instruction. You pick up a phrase. You pick up an accent. You pick up habits naturally, almost without noticing.
And that relaxed, low-pressure state is what allows you to pick things up. That is when the affective filter is down and language just flows in freely.
Versus the high-pressure classroom where the filter is up and your brain is too busy being anxious to absorb anything new.
And children have naturally lower affective filters. They're not embarrassed about making mistakes. They just play, make errors, laugh, and keep going.
Which is exactly why they acquire languages so much faster. They're spending all their energy on meaning and communication, not on worrying about being correct.
All right, I love the science, I really do, but I also want this to be actionable because someone listening to this right now might be thinking, okay, that all makes sense, but what do I actually do differently starting today?
Great. So let me walk you through what I call the input-first system. 3 parts.
3 parts. Easy.
Part 1, find your Goldilocks zone. This means finding English content that is just slightly above your current level. And here's the test. If you understand about 80 to 90% of what you hear, that's your zone. You're understanding most of it, but there's still a little bit that is new and challenging.
So if you're a beginner, you are not watching fast-paced political debates or complex crime dramas.
Right. Beginners should be watching shows made for younger audiences, simple YouTube tutorials on topics they enjoy, podcasts made specifically for English learners.
Exactly like this one, actually.
Exactly like this one. And if you're intermediate, maybe you move up to everyday drama series, lifestyle channels, cooking shows, travel vlogs, content where the vocabulary is everyday, not academic or technical.
And advanced learners can start watching news, interviews, stand-up comedy, though stand-up comedy is honestly very hard because the humor is so cultural and fast.
It's one of the last things to click, actually. Understanding jokes in a foreign language, because humor relies so much on shared cultural references and very fast timing.
I can confirm my Spanish comedy comprehension is, let's say, a work in progress.
So that's part 1, find your zone. Part 2, massive exposure. And this is the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop asking, how many hours should I study today? And start asking, how many hours of English can I fit into my life today?
So you're thinking about your entire day, not just a dedicated study session.
Exactly. English in the morning while you're having breakfast, English during your commute, English at the gym, English while you're cooking dinner or washing dishes. You're not studying. You're not sitting at a desk with a textbook. You're just surrounding yourself with English as a constant presence in your life.
And even if you're not focusing 100%, even if it's kind of background listening, your brain is still processing it?
Your brain is always processing language in the background. Passive listening builds your ear for the rhythm, the sounds, the natural flow of English. And then when you focus, you're building on that foundation.
Immersion. That's the word, isn't it? Immersion means surrounding yourself completely in something. Full immersion in a language means you're in an environment where you have no choice but to use that language.
And traditional immersion means moving to an English-speaking country. But the modern version of immersion, which honestly is almost as powerful, is creating that English environment around yourself wherever you are. Through headphones and a smartphone, you can be immersed in English in any city in the world.
That is actually kind of amazing when you think about it. 20 years ago, you needed to physically move to another country to get that kind of immersion. Now you can do it from your living room.
Completely. And that's part of why English learning is accelerating for people who know how to use these tools. The access to high-quality, authentic English content is basically unlimited now.
And it's often free.
Almost entirely free. YouTube alone has thousands of hours of engaging, natural English content for every level.
Okay, so part 1, find your Goldilocks zone. Part 2, massive exposure. Get English into every part of your day. What's part 3?
Part 3 is what I call active engagement moments. So while passive listening builds your foundation, you also need moments of active, focused engagement. And this doesn't mean turning it into a study session. It means this. When you hear something you don't understand, instead of ignoring it or immediately looking it up in a dictionary, you pause. You use context. You try to figure it out from everything around it.
Because you can often figure it out from context. Like, if someone says she was absolutely famished after the marathon, you might not know the word famished, but you can guess it means very hungry from everything around it.
Exactly. And when you figure something out from context, it sticks in a completely different way than when you look it up, because you did the work. Your brain solved a little puzzle, and brains love solving puzzles.
It's actually satisfying, like a tiny little victory every time you figure out a new word from context.
And that feeling of satisfaction is important.
That's dopamine. That's your brain rewarding itself for learning, and it makes you want to keep doing it.
So language learning should feel like solving little puzzles all day long, not like doing homework.
That's exactly the shift. And when you make that shift, everything changes because you stop dreading it and start enjoying it. And when you're enjoying it, the affective filter goes down and you're absorbing everything.
It's almost like a virtuous cycle. You enjoy it, so you do it more. You do it more, so you improve. You improve, so you understand more. You understand more, so you enjoy it even more.
Upward spiral. And that's when English starts to feel fast, unfairly fast.
Versus the downward spiral, where you force yourself to study, you hate it, you do it less, you make slow progress, you hate it even more.
Which is the experience of a lot of English learners. And it is not because they lack talent or intelligence. It's because the method is fighting against how the brain actually acquires language.
That feels important to say again. It is not about talent. It is about method. The right method can make English feel almost easy, and the wrong method makes it feel almost impossible, even if you're spending a lot of time on it.
Let me give a concrete example of this system in action, because I think abstract ideas become much more powerful when you can see how they look in real life.
Yes, please.
Let's say someone is a B1 English learner, intermediate. They can have basic conversations, understand slow and clear speech, read simple texts, but they feel stuck, like they've been at this level forever and can't seem to break through.
That is such a common feeling, the B1 plateau. So many learners get stuck there.
Right. So here's what the input first system would look like for that person. In the morning, instead of reading grammar explanations on their phone, they switch on a podcast or a YouTube video on a topic they genuinely enjoy. Maybe they love cooking, so they watch an English language cooking channel. Simple vocabulary, visual context, engaging content.
And the visual context is really helpful because it gives you extra clues for meaning. You can see what's happening, so even if you miss a word, you can often still understand.
Exactly. That's comprehensible input reinforced by visual context. Then, during the commute to work or school, instead of music, they listen to an English podcast on a topic they enjoy. Not a difficult news analysis show, something lighter, maybe a storytelling podcast or a lifestyle show.
Like this one.
Like this one. And they are not pausing every sentence. They are just listening, letting it flow. And when something catches their ear that they didn't understand, they make a mental note. Just a mental note.
Not stopping the whole thing to look up a word and losing the flow of the content.
Right. In the evening, they watch one episode of an English series they enjoy, with English subtitles, not their native language subtitles.
That is such an important detail. If you're watching with subtitles in your native language, your brain just reads those and ignores the English audio. You're not processing the English at all.
Exactly. English subtitles force your brain to connect the sounds to the words in English, and over time, you wean yourself off the subtitles completely.
And that whole day, they've done what? Maybe 3 to 4 hours of English input, and almost none of it felt like studying.
It felt like a normal day with entertainment choices, but in terms of acquisition, that is enormously more powerful than sitting down for 45 minutes with a grammar workbook.
And after a few months of that, they would feel like a completely different English speaker.
Because they would be. The brain would have built up thousands of hours of pattern recognition. The unconscious grammar starts to kick in. Words start coming out automatically.
And people around them would think they had some extraordinary talent, some gift for languages.
When really, they just understood how the brain acquires language, and they set up their life to feed the brain what it actually needs.
That is the unfair advantage. It's not a shortcut, it's not a magic pill, it's just doing the right thing instead of the wrong thing.
And once you know what the right thing is, it feels almost unfair to everyone still grinding through grammar textbooks.
All right, let's go through our vocabulary for today. We've sprinkled a lot of good words throughout the episode, and now we're going to collect them all in one place.
And this is actually a great example of the science we gawked about. You heard these words in context first. Now you're hearing them again in review. That repetition, spaced out slightly, is exactly how the brain moves words from short-term memory into long-term storage.
So we're not just reviewing vocabulary right now, we're demonstrating the method at the same time. Very meta.
Very meta. Okay, word 1. Absorb.
To absorb means to take something in naturally, like a sponge. You absorb language through exposure. You can also absorb information, absorb a culture, absorb the atmosphere of a place. After spending a year in New York, she had absorbed so much of the culture that she felt like a local.
And the noun form is absorption. Language absorption happens naturally when conditions are right.
Word 2, comprehensible. An adjective. Something is comprehensible if it can be understood. The noun is comprehension. Reading comprehension is a very common phrase in English. The opposite is incomprehensible, impossible to understand. The professor spoke so fast and used so many technical terms that his lecture was completely incomprehensible to the new students.
And comprehensible input, which is the specific phrase from today, means language that you can mostly understand with just a small amount of new material mixed in.
Word 3, acquire and acquisition. To acquire is to get or develop something over time through experience. You can acquire skills, habits, tastes, languages, property. Acquisition is the noun form. Language acquisition is the natural process of developing a language through exposure. Children acquire their first language without formal instruction. They just absorb it from their environment.
And this is different from just learning something in a formal sense. Acquisition implies a gradual, organic, natural process.
Word 4, immersion. Immersion means being fully surrounded by something, completely submerged in it. Language immersion means placing yourself in an environment where the language is everywhere and you have to use it constantly. She did a 3-month total immersion program in Ireland and came back speaking English with a completely different level of confidence.
And you can create your own immersion at home by making English the dominant language in your media life. Podcasts, shows, music, all in English.
Word 5, unconscious. When something is unconscious, it operates below your level of awareness. You are not thinking about it. It just happens automatically. Your unconscious grammar is the set of language rules your brain has internalized so deeply that you apply them without thinking.
After years of speaking English, her grammar had become completely unconscious. She never had to stop and think about sentence structure. It just flowed.
Word 6, exposure. Exposure means being in regular contact with something, being placed in its presence repeatedly. Language exposure means consistently hearing and seeing real English in use. He had never taken a formal English class, but years of exposure to English movies and music meant his listening comprehension was excellent.
Exposure is the ingredient. Comprehensible exposure is the recipe.
I like that. I might steal that. And word 7, our final one, is a phrasal verb, to pick up. To pick something up means to learn it casually and informally, through experience rather than formal study. She picked up a lot of business vocabulary from working in an international company. He picked up a Southern American accent after moving to Texas.
And you can pick up phrases, you can pick up pronunciation, you can pick up cultural references. It's very versatile, and it always implies naturalness, ease, organic learning.
All right, let's run through all 7 one more time, quick fire. Absorb, comprehensible, acquire and acquisition, immersion, unconscious, exposure, pick up.
7 words. And if you followed along today and understood most of what we were talking about, you didn't just study those words, you started acquiring them.
That's the whole point of this show.
So before we wrap up, I want to ask you one final question, Alex. If someone is listening to this and they want to start applying all of this today, what's the single most important thing they can do right now?
Right now, find one piece of English content that genuinely interests you. Not what you think you should be watching, not the most educational thing, the most enjoyable thing that is at a level you can mostly follow. A show, a podcast, a channel, anything. And spend 30 minutes with it today. Not studying it, not pausing every 30 seconds, just listening, enjoying, absorbing.
And trusting that your brain is doing something powerful in the background.
Because it is, even if it doesn't feel like studying, especially because it doesn't feel like studying.
And that is the unfair advantage. Understanding that the most effective thing you can do is also the most enjoyable thing. Once you know that, everything changes.
The people who never learn that secret will spend years grinding through grammar textbooks and feel like something is wrong with them. The people who do learn it will feel like English is almost coming to them on its own.
Almost unfairly easy.
Almost unfairly easy.
All right, that is it for today's Fluent English podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, your English is already better than you think. Seriously, give yourself some credit.
And if you want to keep going, hit play on the next episode and just keep listening. That's the method. That's the whole method.
See you next time.
See you next time.